Hi everyone, I am here today to review The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. And I feel like this is something I should have read years ago. But I actually had been putting it off for very different reasons, and in the end I ended up picking up the audiobook. So this review is going to specifically focus on my audiobook experience of reading this book, which by the way is fantastic and I highly recommend, as it's narrated by Helena Bonham Carter, aka Bellatrix Lestrange from Harry Potter. And her voice really suited to it. It was quite gentle and soothing, and she was able to tell the story in a really, she made her voice sound like a young Anne Frank. It worked incredibly well. So in case for some reason you don't know what The Diary of a Young Girl is about, it's a mishmash of some diary entries that were created by Anne Frank back during the Second World War, and many years later these were then sort of edited and put together in such a way that they create this book. Now what I actually learned from this book as well is that this is partly created, or at least in the initial stages, by Anne's father. I hadn't even realised that he'd survived, so that was quite interesting to know. So this basically covers her story as a young girl having to hide herself away and sort of experience what it was like to be a Jew during the times of Hitler's reign and all the terrible things that happened back in the 1940s. And this was so eye-opening because before even everything really properly kicks off with the war, there's still a lot of really terrible things that Anne has to put up with, like the Jews aren't allowed to do this and they're not allowed to do that. It was really quite, well, educational for me, but also really just like heartbreaking that that was considered the norm for her and like many other people back then. It's just crazy to even imagine. Anne was 13 when they first went into hiding in a secret annex, and I can't even imagine how that must be at 13 to have that worry on your shoulders that you might get found at any time. Like, a normal 13-year-old should be doing things like worrying about homework and boys maybe, and just having fun. And I would say the one great thing about this diary is that you learn that despite everything that's going on, Anne still has that. You get her talking about her first period, which is something that I thought was really great to see, quite frankly. You don't get periods mentioned enough in books, so the fact that they were mentioned in a book like this important was great, absolutely great. And you've also then got her interest in another boy that's living there, and you've got like her still trying to worry about things like schoolwork, in the situation she was in, and still trying to teach herself. It was just like inspiring. I've got to say that this book was also just incredibly heartbreaking. You've got her talking about what she'd like to do when everything is over, what she wants to do with her future, and you're reading that thinking, or listening in my case, thinking, she's never going to get that future. It's just never going to actually happen. So I used 3 key words to describe this book, and they were entertaining, heartbreaking, and enlightening. And I feel like those 3 words just really sum this book up. And because of all the different things that I have mentioned, this book was really different to what I expected. I mean, I think it's easy to forget that she was 13 when all this was starting, and I hadn't really thought about how that would have an effect on what happens in the actual diary itself. And that was a great surprise, I've got to say. Like, it was really wonderful to hear all this other stuff, and the mood swings, oh my gosh, the teenage mood swings. They are just like, you sat there going, I remember having silly thoughts like that as a teenager. It was quite easy to relate to. So by no means, it definitely wasn't all doom and gloom or anything, so I suppose shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. So yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts and feelings on this audiobook. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I feel like it is one of those must read before you die kind of books. So if you've never read this, you really need to, and pick up the audiobook because it's fantastic. So thank you so much for watching this review. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe by clicking the image of me somewhere if you want to see more book reviews and other bookish content from me, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye!